Hello, hello. Welcome to the Monday Unmadness on Tuesday. And I want to just acknowledge that I'm a little late. So between having like a completely insane morning and then having technical difficulties on top of that, it's just been a day. And it's hard when we change our schedules to accommodate something like a holiday. So I hope that everybody had a fantastic holiday and whatever you celebrated, Passover, Easter, whatever. And yeah, let's get right to it. So we're going to be talking about this idea of intentional authenticity. And this is, it's kind of like the how of authenticity, right? So when we are authenticity, it can be this double-edged sword. Do you know what I mean? If we are oversharing or we are not using authentic communication in a way that's strategic, then it can really backfire. So let's talk more about this and really start breaking down the how of authenticity. So if you are here for the first time, my name is Marissa Krupa. I am a career transition coach, and I specialize in helping mid-career women who are either burnt out or got pushed out in their jobs and are wanting to make a change, but maybe are struggling because of the burnout or fear or self-doubt or what have you. And I base my program on mindfulness and somatics, and used a similar technique to what John Kabat-Zinn developed in the 1970s, where there's multiple modalities for how to create mindset shift and move through the challenges that you're facing. So I recommend that you have a journal or scratch paper and pen handy, and we'll carry on with this topic of intentional authenticity. Last time we met in March, we talked about authenticity and what it was. So here's just a brief recap with some of the core concepts around authenticity. But let's move into what does it mean to be intentional with our authenticity. So that's a little bit different, right? So now we're still like really any good professional ought to kind of have an awareness of our audience, assessing like who's safe, who's not safe, discernment about timing with communications that we are offering, and then also making sure that when we are sharing something about ourselves that's vulnerable, that we are using it to inspire and not create harm. So there's this concept around like trauma, like if you've ever been part of trauma circles, and if you're sharing your story about trauma, your own trauma, in such a way that it re-traumatizes the audience, that's not useful. And it really is showing that you have some more processing that you need to do around that trauma before it's like shareable, if that makes any sense. So these are all the types of things that we're going to be exploring in our program today. And the other one I want to talk about also are the relationships. So it's important to understand that like naturally, and this has happened for me, like I still have friendships from coworkers that I met like years and years ago, like even when I first entered high tech back in like 2002 or whatever. And so I still have those friendships and I'm grateful for them. And that's because I allowed myself to be personable and vulnerable and real with the people I worked with. On the same token, that's not always the norm. And I kind of got lucky, to be honest, especially because the first company was a very small office. It was a European company and I was in their US office. Anyways, so it's important to know that even with those friendships at work, it's still good to have some boundaries about what's shared and to share kind of just enough with just the right tone to build connection with coworkers as opposed to like venting or being caustic with feedback to the point where you are pushing away connection. And I will tell you in my own personal life, I experienced this because when as many of you know my story, when my mom and my brother were facing cancer, my emotions kind of became more unraveled, and I became more caustic and more venting in my interactions. And as a result, people started to turn away from me and turn their backs on me in my workplace. And I got to see the difference because the first several years that I was in that company, I did great, and I was personable and well liked, and people appreciated everything that I was doing in my roles. So it can really change quickly if you are not being mindful and aware of how you are communicating. So that's what we're going to explore. And let's get into our 1 to 10 chart or check-in. So pausing in this moment of now, in your mind's eye, pick a number. 1 is like, it's the most horrible day you've ever had in your life. And 10 is, it's the most fabulous day in your life. And so pick a number that encapsulates everything about you, your workplace, your personal life, your family, your friends, everything, emotions, mental space. Awesome. And then, the other thing I was going to talk about was this Eckhart Tolle quote, which I just love because most women in the professional world have the desire to be free of the constraints that everybody puts on us. And we begin to internalize those constraints, and that's kind of how we get lost, especially in our career. So I really liked this when I found it, and it really speaks to how to shift our internal habits so that as we become more authentic in the world, we can then craft our career transition from that place. All right, so let's do a little bit of movement. Let's see now. Let's remove that so now everybody can see me. And okay, I'm just reviewing. Oh yeah, okay. So we're going to do something pretty cool today. So several of these you may have already remembered from past experiences, but there's another one that we're going to add on that's pretty darn cool. Okay, so I want to adjust this camera so you can see me better. Okay, let's try that. Okay, great. So the first thing we're going to do is what Anna Dea Judith talks about is energizing the legs. So if you stand a little bit wider than hip distance apart, and now really pigeon your toes in. So bring your toes so that they're really pointing inwards. And now have a slight bend on your knees. Hands on your hips. Oh, this is all voluntary, by the way. You don't have to do this, but I recommend it. And so what we're going to do is just really ground into this moment of now, and then start to explore this idea of intentional authenticity. All right, so now we're going to take a deep breath in and bend our knees. It's a little awkward with the pigeon toe, that's okay. And then as you exhale, push your legs apart. Now a few more times. Bending knees, inhale. Exhale, really push your legs apart. Push, push, push. Like the opposite of tweezers. Okay, let's do 2 more times. Beautiful. Are you starting to feel some heat in your legs? That's what should be happening. And also the heat can rise from the base of the torso up. Let's do 1 more. Beautiful. Now we're going to add to it. So I'm going to turn sideways so you can see me. So we're still in the same pigeon-toed, slightly longer or wider than hip distance. And now as we bend down on the in-breath, let me show you the first one. We're going to bend down, inhaling. And as we exhale, we'll spread our legs wide and then push your pelvis forward into a body wave, all with your hands on your hips. Let's give it a try. Inhale. Exhale, push out, out, out. Pelvis forward and wave the torso up. Beautiful. Inhale. Let's do a few more. One more. Beautiful. Unpigeon your toes. Just stand and breathe. You can place the palms facing forward if that feels good to you. And just feel what you feel. Awesome, everybody. So now we're going to come into some chair exercises. You can do this also sitting on the edge of your chair with your buttocks on the edge of the chair. I like to do it standing, kind of get, especially because we're going to be doing torso tilts. So feet are hip distance apart. Arches are lifting. Slight bend in your knees. Hands on your hips. On your inhale, sink your backside into chair and lift your arms up alongside your ears. Just pause here and breathe. Really pull your belly into your spine. Beautiful. Now clasp your hands together and make a point with your index fingers, and all the rest of the fingers are folded together. So you can see that's what it looks like here. And now deep in breath as you exhale, tilt the torso forward, allowing that point of your fingers to kind of guide you like a compass needle all the way to the floor on the exhale. Pause here, take a round of breath. Inhale, exhale. Inhale deeply all the way up. And pause and share. Take a round of breath. Inhale, exhale. One more time. Inhale deeply. Pull the belly in. Exhale, release down. If you don't need the recovery breath at the pause, you can go ahead and just inhale your way up. Otherwise, let's take a recovery breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale all the way up. One more time. Inhale, exhale, tilt. Take a round of breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale. Take one more deep breath in. Exhale, release the arms, come up to standing. Man, that one always gets me. Stand and breathe. Notice what you feel. Notice what you feel. All right. The next one we're going to do is with our arms. So let me adjust the camera one more time here so you can see a little better. So what we're going to do is this idea of like kind of getting stuff off of our back, right? And this is a really important one, which we'll talk about later as far as self-regulation. So the first thing we're going to do is inhale our arms up. And then make your hands fists as you exhale and make chicken wings. So folding at the elbow, your fists are kind of by your armpit and your elbows are out, okay? Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, push your elbows away. So one side, the other side, and both, right? Like get off my back. All right, inhale. Exhale. And you can say the words if you want to. Get off my back. Inhale. Exhale, chicken wings. Get off my back. Beautiful. One more time. With or without the words, your choice. my back. One more time. Inhale. Exhale, release your arms. Pause here and really feel that one. Feel what that looks like, or what that feels like in your body. How your mind feels, how your heart feels. That's a super powerful one from Anna Judith, who wrote, what did she write? Eastern something, Western something. I got it right here. Eastern body, Western mind. It's right on my desk. All right. So let's get back to our presentation. So as you're breathing, feeling into your body, let's really talk about now this idea of intentional authenticity. So let's first talk about our audience. And what I'd like to offer around this is that if you are trying to bring more of your true self into your meetings, it's really important to understand that your communication needs to be strategic, and it can be both, right? I think what happens is we get stuck into the facade, especially for women of color and LGBTQ plus IA women. It's this like veneer of perfection, right? And we put this mask on. So we can still be strategic in our communication and yet authentic at the same time. And so I want to offer that this is possible. So I'd like you to think about either an upcoming meeting that you're going to have, or maybe it's a meeting or an email with a group of people that you've already sent, or it could be also an upcoming email that you need to send to a group of people. And just think about the audience of those people, right? So you're focusing on a group that you know about at your workplace, and you will or will not be communicating with them. You may be part of just the group meeting and other people are going to communicate, right? But you may have questions or you may have points that you want to bring up in that meeting. So you're going to be communicating to a group. And then answer the following questions about this situation. And I'm going to time you for 1 minute. Okay. Let's see now. Timer, 1 minute. All right. So the first thing, and go. Out of this group, who is safe and who is judgmental or unsafe? Just quickly write down. Out of this group, who is open in their personality, their mentality, their philosophy, who is closed, and who is an unknown that you don't know about? Write that down. What do you imagine are the problems that each of these individuals have that they are going to be bringing to this meeting? So list out the names and then jot down real fast the problems for each person. And then what do each of these people in this group want from this communication, from this meeting or this email? So again, write down the name, write down what do they want out of this communication. Probably they're trying to solve their problems. So they probably want that. All right, and that is time. So then the next set of questions, I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes to do this and go. Based on what you just wrote down and what was or will be communicated, what is one small piece of your personal story that may offer inspiration or motivation to this group? It could be your personal story. It could be a story about your team. And if you have more than one, that's cool. Jot it down. That's fine. But one small piece of your personal story that can motivate or inspire this group, potentially. And if you're not sure, just try writing something down and see how it feels. All right, that is time. Okay, great work. Let's move on. So now that we have a framework for our audience, which is the who, let's talk about some strategies on how to use this information, because now you've kind of written out a bit of a roadmap in a way with the people that you're going to be communicating with. So the first one is really to speak from the I perspective. And this is hard because it can kind of go both ways, and you have to really think through. Depending on the people in your group, speaking from the I perspective might come, especially as women, might come across as selfish, as aggressive, or whatever. You may want to come across as we, or you may want to come across as, several of us, many of us, several team leads, several, groups in the marketing department, whatever. So feel it out. But coming from a perspective of your personal experience is really what we mean by this I perspective. And take a look at your list now and kind of decide with this communication, how would it be received if you came from a place of I? And so maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't. But you don't also want to take on too much responsibility that isn't yours. And that's a very common mistake that professional women make and are actually encouraged to make. We're encouraged to be the workhorses. So feel this one out. However, if you feel that taking ownership of something would build esteem or build a positive viewpoint of you in this meeting, then do it, right? Because coming from the I perspective means you are fully owning what you're about to say. So you can also frame a communication in a general way so that doesn't call out anyone. So this is another thing to think about. So when you're owning something that you did or that it's impacting your team or impacting the company, that could be very powerful. But then when the time is right, you also want to make sure you're not calling people out inadvertently. So here's an example. I struggle with from the VP regarding this client, so I don't know how to assign my team. Super valid. And you're owning your struggle. That's great. And also it might be seen as an attack. And this is the tightrope walk that we as women in the corporate world make all the time. Here's another option. The communication about this client's needs seems to be confusing to many team leads and is resulting in misalignment of staff to complete the project. So now you've really generalized it. Really, you're talking about yourself, and people will pick up on that, but they'll also pick up on the fact that you're not trying to throw the VP under the bus directly, right? And that you're trying to be aware and strategic with how you're communicating. So, and then also what I always tell clients in this situation is to make sure that you've got a potential solution to offer and to say, so you might add on, okay, the communication with this client is confusing and it's resulting in misalignment. Something that some of the team leads have come up with, which I agree with, so you can sort of own it and sort of not, is, XYZ communication channel or this, that, and the other. This would help us to, and then you can claim it, this would help us in these ways, right? So coming up with a potential solution, because VPs and higher, man, they're busy as all heck and they can't always problem solve every single thing. So when you provide them a solution that actually really helps them to save face, but also helps you to be seen as somebody who is strategically trying to work with the organization as a team player to help everybody be more effective, right? Okay, so now I'm going to just give you 30 seconds here. And what I want you to do is to rewrite the story of yourself personally that you picked. You've got your audience list. You've got a potential couple of stories. And so now take that story and write out your communication, knowing your audience, knowing the I versus we and what might be best, and just create a little script about how you might communicate in this meeting. So here's 30 seconds, go. All right, that is time. So now let's talk about this idea of assessing our energy behind the words. So I want you to take a look at what you wrote and then ask yourself, what do I really feel about this situation? Am I kind of resentful that I'm not able to get that good communication I need to assign my team effectively? Am I frustrated? Um, am I angry? Am I just plain burnt out and everything feels overwhelming? What do I really feel? And then jot down a few of those words, of those emotions. Because if what you wrote it kind of out of these emotions, that energy is going to come through in that communication and in that script. And it may not be what you want to share. Now, it could be, sometimes we need to kind of hit people over the head and let people know, like, look, this is really an issue. Most of the time, though, as women professionals, that doesn't go over well. So, is there any sort of emotion that you need to process around the situation before you communicate it? Okay, so now let's go back to what we just did in our movement like 5-10 minutes ago. All of those things are ways for you to process, okay? Especially the taking out, going to chicken wings, get off my back, right? That's a super powerful one. The one that we talked about a few months ago with like me and getting into our warrior self, those physical exercises are great. The Kriya where coming down. Oh, it looks like it lost it. Okay, it's back. It's windy today, so this is part of the tech problems. Jazz hands and then coming back. That's a really good one to balance energy. So it's really important that you acknowledge that you may have some emotions to process before you communicate this. And so my suggestion would be to process those emotions quickly. You can do a deeper dive later, but especially if you're in the workplace, process quickly, kind of get it out of your system, go take a walk, whatever, and then come back and then rewrite it. And we're going to do that next. But the last piece of this one, of the strategies, is also, once you have identified some of the emotions that you're feeling around this, to acknowledge your stance, right? So here's a couple of examples. This is really hard for me. And then say what you have to say, right? So people know that it's like, this is awkward and hard and you're aware of it. The other one, this is hard for me, right? Maybe it's about a performance review and you're like, oh, this is awkward for me, right? Another phrase, although the timing on this is not ideal, blah, 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 blah. And that's really preparing people for a hard truth that needs to be said, even though the timing may not be the best, but it's got to be said because something else is going to be falling off the rails if you don't say it. And then this one is, you can massage it in your own words, but data doesn't lie. That's kind of a thing, right? That might be too abrupt, but here's the idea. Data doesn't lie, and the truth of this data is hard to share. Or you could say, well, the numbers really speak to this, and that's a hard reality to face. It's a little softer way to put it. All right, let's keep going. So now let's talk about resources, okay? So again, this idea of complaining in a way that builds connection. I know it sounds crazy, like complain to build connection, but it's different than venting. And so here's the difference, right? Complaining about the circumstance, complaining about the project, complaining about the client being kind of fussy or whatever. That's a connection builder. That's a bridge builder. But venting, which usually, and just to define, venting is like a solid minute of just spewing about something. Usually what happens is that people will start to complain about other people or teams. And then that's when you start getting into people reacting and responding to you differently than what you want, okay? So We want to move away from that steady stream. So venting is a sign that your nervous system is on overload. And it is so important. And this is a really simple thing. If when you recognize that you're venting about something, that's like, and you start to vent more and more and more often, that means you are on the pathway to burnout. And so to stop when you vent and go, wait a minute, what can I do instead of venting that will regulate my nervous system? Take a walk, do one of the exercises that we did, all the things. Go back to all the Monday Unmadnesses and write down all the exercises and like keep a chart of all the ones you could try, right? This is why I do them every session, you guys, so that you have these tools to use in your workplace right there every day in the moment, right? You can go to the bathroom and get into a stall and do all the things for 5 minutes. No one's going to notice. Do you know what I mean? And this is also why when we talked about time blocking and protecting your calendar, that you need to put breaks in between meetings so that you have the chance to go to the bathroom and do some breathing and movement and re-regulate yourself. Otherwise, the pressure is just going to keep building up and your nervous system is going to cry uncle and you're going to be like burnt out and fired, basically. So create that list, right? And then also recognize that you need resources outside of work to do the vent or to do a deeper dive and a deeper processing of whatever's going on. So while you're in the workplace, it's really not appropriate to do the deep dive venting and processing. You've got to be able to regulate yourself enough. It doesn't have to be perfect, but enough to move through that 5 minutes and get on to the next meeting, right? And I really recommend then finding outside resources. You've got a list here of people that are going to actually hold you accountable, because this is in the research, and then help to point out your blind spots. That's what a coach like me does. That's what I do for clients. I help them to kind of see around the corner, but more importantly, I help them to regulate their nervous system so that not being able to see around the corner is not so stressful, right? Because so as with any kind of mental habit, we can't see around the corner so often that it becomes something we become afraid of and get locked up around emotionally and mentally. So here's an example. I have a marketing accountability person as part of my marketing program. And just yesterday we connected and I was offering her the name and number of a friend of mine who wanted to book a session of what she does. And so she started getting really squirrely about it. She's like, well, I don't know. And I need to find this link. And no, don't give me his name. No, don't give me my comfort. And I just paused her. I said, hey, look, so-and-so, let's just pause. Let's just breathe. Do you really want this client or not? And she got affronted because I was really direct about it. And I was like, do you really want this client or not? Well, and she, and I said, okay, whoa, let's just stop. Let's just breathe. Here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing you backpedaling. I'm hearing you feeling insecure, like you're not ready. I'm hearing that you don't believe in yourself, that you can really do this, and that you are afraid to actually get your first fully paid booked client. That's what I'm hearing. So here's what I suggest to you. Acknowledge all that, put it in a box, put it on a shelf, take this person's name and number and call them. And she was like, oh, okay. Later on that day, she messaged me and she was so thankful. And she said, okay, I've contacted him and thank you so much for calling me out on this. And it helped me immensely to get over my fear and insecurity and just call the person. So there you go. So that is an accountability type partner, right? That's somebody who is going to help you see around your blind spots. And that's the kind of, you want to have at least one or two of these relationships outside of your work to be able to get perspective. So yes, you may vent for a couple minutes, but then they help you gain perspective. So that is the thing. All right. So we're going a little over time because we started late, but let's take about 20 seconds now. And with the communication that you have written with this newfound knowledge, rewrite it, especially actually acknowledging these emotions you have, and maybe use one of those phrases of acknowledging your stance around it. So let's do that now, and 20 seconds, go. All right, that's time. Now we're going to take 20 more seconds, and you can kind of set that aside, re-look at it, and review it again a few more times before you get into that meeting. Now let's take 20 seconds, and I want you to create a list of all the ways that you can self-regulate at work, okay? So anything you can think of, going outside and walking around the building, whatever. Here we go, 20 seconds, go. All right, that is time. Now take a quick look at your list of all the ways you can self-regulate and look at all the ones that involve body movement. And if you don't have any, or you only have one, then after this session, go back and redo that list and really focus on how can I move my body? Because going from one screen to like your phone, that's not going to help you self-regulate. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And it's tricky because the screens do give us a type of dopamine and a couple of those positive mental chemicals, but it's not the full spectrum of mental chemicals that we get when we move our bodies. And so it's kind of a red herring. You kind of feel like you're self-regulated, but you're not really. Okay, so I want to highlight that piece. All right, last 20 seconds. Write out a list of all the people you know outside of work that could hold you accountable and help you with additional processing support. Go. All right, great work on that. So here's putting it all together. So in order to prevent vulnerability and authenticity from shooting ourselves in the foot, right, and sabotaging or hurting our careers that we've worked so hard to build, we need to be strategic in how we bring our authenticity and vulnerability in. So know your audience, know who's safe, who's not safe, know the timing of when to share something. Communicate with the goal that you are building connection, inspiration, and motivation with that personal story of yours. Cultivate self-regulation skills as well as relationships, both inside and outside of your workplace, but especially outside. All right. Thank you. So, wait, we got to do our 1 to 10 scale. Okay. So 1 to 10. Well, let's do the 1 minute stillness first, and then we'll do the 1 to 10 scale. And I know we're running way over time, but when do you ever sit in stillness? Like never. So let's just do it together because it's an opportunity and a chance to do it. Okay, here's our 1 minute and go. You can sit with an erect spine, either eyes closed or open, or soften your gaze, hands and palms on your lap. Notice your breathing. Notice any sensations in your body. Notice what you hear. And then notice if your mind wanders off, and let that be okay. And when you notice your mind wandering off, just gently bring your focus back to your body, your breath, and the sound around you. All right. Open your eyes. Feel free to stretch if you need to. And then let's pick our number 1 to 10. So, how are you feeling in this moment of now compared to when we started this session? And so, hopefully, your number is higher towards 10. That's my wish for you. All right. Well, thank you for being with me today. And I will, I'm not sure if this is going to work because I think this will work. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat. I'm not sure if it'll go in all the chats. Let's see. Okay, so hopefully that worked. And then I'll double check it on LinkedIn. Let's see now. It looked like it went onto YouTube. And it looked like, I don't know if it went onto LinkedIn. This is the story of my day. Oh, heavens. Anyhow, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you got a lot of value out of this session. And so these are all the different ways that you can, get in touch with me. And I really recommend just, getting on my calendar if there's any way that you want to, let's see, click to join live. I think, make sure it's off. Okay. So now I can comment on LinkedIn. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, just book a call on my calendar because that is like, it might just change your life. And it's 15 minutes of your time. And we can strategize what you're going through, what you're struggling with, and help you take even just one small step towards more positive career transition. Just know that I know you're struggling, and that is okay. Not that I want you to struggle, but it's part of the cycle of life, and it's part of the process with which we go through when we make a transition. So just know you're not alone. All right, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.